there are some investment milestones. Once you reach those milestones, then life seems to be so easier. Life seems to be so smooth, and your financial freedom, your financial goals seems to move smoothly. So in the United States, individuals tend to allocate 100,000 US dollars. Once you achieve that milestone, then the heavy lifting which you have been used to, that is $0 to $100,000, seems to be so easy. Now moving from 100,000 US dollars to a million US dollars, the journey seems to be easier. So I have also decided to take that figure, that is 100,000 Kenyan shillings, not 100,000 US dollars, because for 100,000 US dollars, that translates to around 13 million Kenyan shillings, and that is a lot of money. So I want to kind of reduce that huge amount and bring it back home, that is 100,000 Kenyan shillings. So once you have 100,000 Kenyan shillings, how many shares can you have from the Nairobi Stock Exchange? So that's what basically I am going to discuss in this video, and I believe you are going to gain one or two insights from this video. And if you would like it, if you could like the video, generally like it in the thumbs up, share, and also you may subscribe. So 100,000 Kenyan shillings can get you a different number of shares from different companies. And the main reason is different companies sell at different prices. So I have decided to choose four companies, and I believe if I am going to discuss these four companies, then you can have a genuine understanding of how many shares 100,000 Kenyan shillings may get you in the Nairobi Stock Exchange. So I am going to discuss with a few basics, kind of fundamentals, before we move on. So once you have decided to buy stocks from Nairobi Stock Exchange, I assume that you have a stockbroker. And a stockbroker, roughly they take around 2% of the transaction or of the money which you are going to invest. So for this case, 100,000 Kenyan shillings, it may translate to around 2,000 Kenyan shillings. So this 2,000 Kenyan shillings is going to be kind of a constant between all brokers, which I am going to discuss. So let's start from the first company which I thought I should use as a good example, that is Kenya Rail. As I was doing this video, Kenya Rail trades around 3 shillings per share. So if you have 100,000 Kenyan shillings, it means that you are going to divide 100,000 Kenyan shillings with 3 shillings, and then we would have the results as the number of shares. So if you do your own calculations, then you would end up with around 33,333 shares. There are some decimals, but in the Nairobi Stock Exchange, we have no fractional shares. So if you are going to invest this 100,000 or the whole amount on Kenya Rail, or you want to buy the shares of Kenya Rail, then you are going to have 3,000, not 3,000, but 33,333 shares of Kenya Rail. And the whole amount which you need in order to have this number of shares is you need to have 102,000 Kenyan shillings. That is, we have added the transaction cost as brokerage fee we have added to this transaction. So next we need to move to another company, which is, I find it so familiar, so you may understand how much kind of this company sells. It is Safaricom. Safaricom, I need to use this figure which was around 28 shillings per share. So if you are going to buy these shares, then you are going required to have, so you are going to divide 100,000 Kenyan shillings divided by 28 shillings per share, and the general results which you are going to have, I may not be exact in terms of these figures, but you are going to come up with 3,581 shares. So if you add also, there are some decimals, but as we have said, there are no fractional shares in the Nairobi Stock Exchange. So you are going to have, you are going to add 2,000 as a brokerage fee. So the general amount which is going to grant you 3,581 shares, it is going to be 102,000 Kenyan shillings. So you see, the first amount of Kenya Rail, we had a number of shares that's around 33,000. Now we have reduced it to around 3,000, it's because 3,581 is because the cost per share differs from one company to another, from Kenyare to Safaricom. Another company which I believe we should also discuss, which is kind of has a different amount of share price, is Crown. Crown was trading around 54 shillings per share. So it means we are going to divide the amount which we have, that is 100,000 divided by 54 shillings per share, and we will end up coming with around 1,871 shares. So if you add the 2,000 amount which is required as a brokerage fee, you need 102,000 Kenyan shillings to acquire those shares, that is 1,871. Lastly, one of the most expensive share kind of companies per share is known as Limuru Tea. Limuru Tea trades at around, as I was doing this video, it was doing around 380 shillings per share. So we need to understand, we need to find out how many shares will 100,000 Kenyan shillings grant us from the Limuru Tea. So we are going to divide 100,000 Kenyan shillings divided by 380 shillings per share, and we will end up coming up with around 263. There are some decimals, we need to ignore those decimals shares. So we are going to come up with around 263 shares of Limuru Tea. So you can see, the more we move to expensive companies, the less shares we have, but those cheaper shares, those cheaper shares per price, the more number of shares we have. So that's kind of the general view of how many 100,000 Kenyan shillings, how many shares you can get from different companies. So if you had this amount of money, the advice I can give you is, don't go and invest this amount of money in one company. Don't say, I am going to invest in Limuru Tea because it's kind of expensive, so it means there are going to be high returns. You may end up getting disappointed, because as an individual, I need to give my own opinion. It's not a financial opinion, but I tried to do I tried to do my own research on Limuru Tea, and I found that the company is kind of, earning per share is negative, and I don't understand why is the company so expensive. So you need to go and do your own research and find out, why is this company so expensive? Can I invest this amount of my money? But since you have 100,000 Kenyan shillings, don't go and invest in one company. Just do diversification. It's a good strategy. It's a good strategy which will not kind of disappoint you. So that's kind of my thoughts today from this video. I hope you have got one or two ideas, and if you are interested to know and more about investing in Nairobi Stock Exchange, or generally investing about stocks, then I would like your thoughts in the comment section. And if you see you have gotten some value, then you can subscribe, share, and send maybe to those individuals who you believe this information can easily benefit. Thanks for watching. See you in my next one.